Today we're going to be talking about domestic violence. 1 in 4 women have experienced domestic violence at the hands of a spouse, a boyfriend, or a partner. In the United States, over 7 million children have been affected by domestic violence in terms of what they have seen in their homes, their household, and obviously this has traumatized them and has incurred some very negative effects on children. Also, in the United States, on an average, almost 500 women are sexually abused or raped on a daily basis. The World Health Organization has deemed domestic violence as a national epidemic. So obviously it's not just rampant here in the United States, but it's a global issue. And in many ways, it's a generational issue that plagues families and individuals all over the world. Domestic violence is a very complex issue to deal with because there are so many variables attached to this issue, this incident that takes place between men and women. We also have to look at the very, very intricate differences that play into domestic violence in terms of the male and the female. One of the things that I'd like to talk about for a moment is what's called the cycle of domestic violence. So this is how the cycle usually goes. It's pretty consistent and it repeats itself over and over again in a domestic-laden relationship. So we have what's called the tension building phase. Now in this phase, the woman feels like she's walking on eggshells. She tends to be very, very nervous. She's unsure of what might happen, so there tends to be a considerable amount of anxiety. So we move from the tension building phase, which can last for a few days, it can last for a few months. It just really depends on what's going on. But once again, in the tension building phase, just a tremendous amount of anxiety going on. There could be arguments about issues with the children. It could be about money issues. It can be about bills. So many, many different things. But once again, the woman is feeling somewhat unstable and uncertain about what is going to happen. So then we come to what's called the abusive incident, where in most cases the man gets physical with the woman. There could be push, there could be slaps, there could be punches, there can be kicks. But once again, the woman is physically assaulted and in some cases sexually assaulted. So in this phase, once again, we see a considerable amount of physical damage and battery. Then we move to what's called the honeymoon phase. And in this phase, we see the male perpetrator. He exhibits a tremendous amount of remorse. He expresses how sorry he is for what took place. He's asking for forgiveness. He may suggest that they go for counseling. And he's just very, very apologetic. He assures the woman that this will never, ever happen again. So she begins to feel good. And then it's as if the relationship resets itself. So the honeymoon phase, we see a lot of apologies. He's very apologetic, sincerely remorseful, and he's willing to do anything in order to make the relationship work. Then we move to what's called the calm phase. There's quietness, there's peace, there's tranquility within the home environment. The male perpetrator tends to be very relaxed, and once again, he's given lots of assurances that things will be okay. He's buying gifts. He's making purchases for his partner, helping her to feel at ease,
helping her to feel good about herself. And it's as if the relationship resets itself and there's peace, harmony, and contentment. But once again, that will only last for a period of time. And once again, that period of time tends to be very unpredictable. So here from this calm stage, we move back to the tension building, and it starts all over again. So this is what we call the cycle of abuse. It's a predictable stages that occur in most of the domestic violence relationships that we see. And once again, in this honeymoon phase, there's a tendency for the male perpetrator to demonstrate a considerable amount of affection, which helps the woman to feel secure. She feels that she's special now, and she has that feeling that this will not happen again because he's expressing so much affection, so much love, so much appreciation for her. And when we get to this calm phase, it's important to state that a lot of men will express their affections for the woman through passionate sex. And that tends to, once again, help the woman to feel that she's special, she's loved, she's appreciated, and this tends to bring a very, very calm, peaceful, tranquil time in the relationship. If the male exhibits these types of signs, then you can have a pretty good indication that he may engage in some abusive behaviors. One of the first signs to look for is if your partner tends to humiliate you in private. Now, the humiliation, it can be subtle, where he says certain things, and he says this in private. But once the two of you get out into public, get into the public domain, he may begin to humiliate you in front of your friends and your families. So that's something that you want to be on the lookout for. How does he talk to you privately? Is he saying things such as, "You really bother me. You're ugly. You're no good. I don't even know why I'm with you." So those are some humiliating statements that the male may make within your presence. Then the next thing is that he may try to throw some negative insults at you where he's talking about your character. He may even want to talk about your intelligence, how you look, maybe how you parent your children or your child. So be on the lookout for those things. Okay, sign number 3 would be physical violence. And this may come in the way of him raising his hand with a clenched fist, his posture, things like that. And it may go further where he starts to give you a push or a slap, a kick, or a punch. So those are violent behaviors that he's demonstrating to you. So if you see that, obviously that's going to give you a lot of information about this person that you're with. The other sign that I want you to look for is what we call controlling behaviors, where he wants to monitor where you're going, what time you're coming back. He wants to micromanage everything that you do. And he's using a tactic that we call alienation to control you, where he tries to remove most of your family and your friends out of your life. So in this way, you can be totally dependent on him. So he's really trying to take away your support system so that he more or less has you all to himself, and that way you become totally dependent on him for everything. Now, the other sign that I want you to look for is what we call mood swings, where one moment he's loving, he's romantic, he's happy, he's joyous, he's caring. But when you see a sudden mood shift quickly from the person being happy and romantic and playful, and all of a sudden he just changes, that's an indication that this person may have some violent tendencies, when you see such a sudden mood shift that just happens in a split second. So, in closing, we have just touched the tip of the iceberg today concerning domestic violence. It's a very, very comprehensive subject with so many parts to it. So as we move along in the month of October, we hope to do another feature concerning domestic violence. I'm sure that those of you who know someone who has been impacted in a negative way by domestic violence. For many people who are trapped in a situation like that, there's a tremendous amount of stigma in terms of telling people or seeking help. But if someone comes to you with that type of a struggle, I encourage you to give a listening ear and do your best not to be judgmental and encourage them to seek help. Seeking help can entail many things. It could be that they go and see someone, a psychologist, a social worker, maybe go to a mental health clinic. Possibly they may need to go to a shelter. Also, they can tell their families, they can tell friends, they can create a supportive environment for themselves and their family, and they can always seek counseling. But encourage them to get help. Because if nothing is done, the cycle will continue and the person will put themselves at risk. So once again, the most important thing that you can do, if someone talks to you about their situation concerning domestic violence, is to encourage them to seek help and be a support system for them. Thank you so much. We appreciate you listening today, and we also hope that this information will help you to be able to help someone else who is struggling with domestic violence. Thank you.